Hi, my name's Ian Boyd, and I'm a junior at the Colorado School of Mines. I'm in a Geology 101 class, Section B, and I'm doing a final report project on the Chesapeake Bay and why it is an environmentally sensitive area.
The Chesapeake Bay is the United States' largest estuary, a coastal body of water where fresh water from rivers and streams mix with salt water from the ocean. A combination of plants and animals make the bay a vital part of the economy within the United States. From seafood production to tourism, the bay attracts a lot of attention. Due to the importance of the estuary, the bay and the surrounding area have become an environmentally sensitive area. Changes on land happen daily, but the challenge is ensuring the bay's estuary survives man-made changes that affect the bay's ecosystem. This video will discuss the importance of the Chesapeake Bay ecosystem, what happens to threaten the ecosystem, the impacts of humans, and what is being done to preserve a vital ecosystem and a valuable part of the economy. The Chesapeake Bay runs about 200 miles along the coast from Maryland to Virginia. More than 18 million people live in the Chesapeake Bay watershed. The Chesapeake produces about 500 million pounds of seafood each year, supporting jobs in both commercial and recreational fishing and bolstering the regional economy. The main seafood harvested from Chesapeake Bay are blue crabs, oysters, and rockfish, also known as striped bass. The regional economy is bolstered by tourism. Roughly $2 billion and 32,000 jobs are generated each year in Maryland from tourism. Agriculture in the area includes farming of soybeans, hay, corn, and livestock. Agricultural sales in 2007 were about $9.5 billion. 24% of that was from crops and 76% from livestock. The Chesapeake Bay provides a lot of food while accounting for a large part of the economy. The benefits received by the economy and the public around the bay aren't what makes the Chesapeake Bay an environmentally sensitive area. The Chesapeake Bay stretches about 200 miles along the eastern coast of the United States from Maryland to Virginia. The Chesapeake Bay creates the nation's largest estuary, home to more than 3,700 species of plants and animals. Fresh water flows from many rivers and streams into the ocean, creating a unique environment for plants and animals with fresh water and saltwater mix. A reef inside the bay provides food, shelter, and a place to grow for the over 3,700 plants and animals. But these features would not be available without the help of the surrounding area. The surrounding area accounts for the entire ecosystem. According to the National Park Service, there are 6 types of habitats in the Chesapeake Bay watershed: forests, streams and rivers, aquatic reefs and pilings, beaches and tidal flats, marshes and wetlands, open and shallow waters. The 6 habitats make up the ecosystem of Chesapeake Bay. Knowledge from geology courses at the Colorado School of Mines, you learn that without one part of an ecosystem, the rest of the ecosystem could collapse. Human actions have had an impact on the ecosystem of Chesapeake Bay and threaten the existence of the beneficial estuary. Human effects on the ecosystem, like overfishing, degraded water quality, and habitat destruction, are significant challenges to the Chesapeake and the species that live there. The United States Department of Agriculture, or USDA, and the Natural Resources Conservation Services, NRCS, have calculated the land that makes up the ecosystem of the Chesapeake Bay as 62.5% forest, 10.5% cultivated cropland, and 8.6% urban. Humans account for roughly 19.1% of the land surrounding the Chesapeake Bay area, but according to the NRCS, cultivated cropland and urban land account for about 61% of the sediment, 68.5% of nitrogen, and 78.4% of phosphorus delivered into the rivers and streams. As human populations grow, the need for more land, buildings, farms, and roads increases. New construction can interfere with the forests and damage the ecosystem. Trees play a vital role in the ecosystem they are in. If forests are destroyed, then homes for animals and water quality of streams and rivers are also affected. Forests currently buffer about 60% of the streams and rivers that flow into the bay. Trees will trap nitrogen from the air, stopping majority of nitrogen pollution from reaching the streams. Nitrogen can decrease the oxygen levels in the water, causing the growth of algae blooms. Low or no oxygen creates dead zones, where marine life cannot survive. Green algae can grow in the water, causing the death of other living plant life and animal life within the growth area. Dead zones can cause the entire ecosystem to collapse depending on where the dead zone is. New construction doesn't only affect the forests, but rather brings with it another damaging effect on the ecosystem. When roads are constructed and are designed, they are built with a water runoff. A water runoff can deliver pollutants from cars and waste along the roadside directly into streams and rivers that flow into the Chesapeake Bay. Farming is another cause of pollutants running into rivers and streams, contributing to the pollution of the Chesapeake Bay. Farmers create a lot of pollution from fertilizers, chemicals, and animal waste. These pollutants seep into the groundwater and find their way into the Chesapeake Bay. The 2007 Census of Agriculture reported that there were nearly 84,000 farms in the Chesapeake Bay. Farms can take nutrients out of the ground and replace them with harmful pollutants that kill plant life in the rivers and streams, and in turn, the bay that the water flows into. If we take a look inside the bay itself, 500 million pounds of seafood is harvested each year. Reefs hold oyster farms and safe places for fish to live. Overfishing has caused the fish, crab, and oyster population to dwindle. To help repopulate the fish in the area, commercial fishing limits have been set on weight of fish caught and the limit restrictions on the size of acceptable fish to keep. Diminishing water quality from farming, pollution, loss of forests, and urban construction have had a negative effect on the ecosystem surrounding the Chesapeake Bay area. But there are some organizations taking measures to ensure the ecosystem survives. The government has become involved in the restoration and preservation of Chesapeake Bay, along with a few organizations doing their part as well. In 2010, National Park Service and other federal agencies submitted the response to the executive order called the Strategy for the Protection and Restoration of the Chesapeake Bay Watershed. The executive order was placed in 2009 and stated the government needed to preserve the bay and the surrounding areas, parks, rivers, and streams. So this includes the entire ecosystem. The National Wildlife Federation has implemented Clean Water Acts and deadlines to have pollution decreased. In 40 years, the Chesapeake Bay has lost half of its forested shoreline, more than half its wetlands, nearly 80% of its underwater grasses, and more than 98% of its oysters. The Chesapeake Bay Foundation is a non-profit organization that focuses on restoration and preservation of the bay. In an effort to clean the water and restore the natural ecosystem, the CBF has reintroduced oysters in the reefs, planted grasses in the bay, and planted trees around the bay. Pollution from humans ends up running off onto beaches, into rivers, and into the ocean and the bay that is in the ocean. Part of the restoration projects include cleaning up the bays and fixing some of the runoff to ensure cleaner water flows into the Chesapeake Bay. The government is working with farmers to lower their farms' impact on the ecosystem. In 2011, the USDA and NRCS created a Conservation Effects Assessment Project. The project was designed to work with farmers to reduce the pollution that gets into the rivers and streams from their farmland. The project expected the conservation practices to be effective in reducing pollution that enters the rivers and streams. Compared to a cropped condition without conservation practices, average annual total nitrogen loss has been reduced by 88%. Average total phosphorus loss has been reduced by 92%, and soil organic carbon has been increased by an average of more than 333 pounds per acre per year. While the damage to the Chesapeake Bay ecosystem has been hurt by man-made structures and devices, the bay has many volunteers helping to reestablish the environment within the ecosystem. Limits on fishing have been set, reintroduction of plants and animals in the sea. The laws have been passed to incite action to preserve the nation's largest estuary. Farmers have been taught how to manage waste and pollution created from their farms, so the runoff doesn't end up in the river system. Trees are being planted along the rivers to help reduce nitrogen levels and erosion along river banks and streams. Damage to the Chesapeake Bay ecosystem has been done, but it is currently being restored and protected for the future. Chesapeake Bay is not just a bay of water, but rather an entire ecosystem surrounding a bay of water. The Chesapeake Bay provides a major benefit to society and the economy, but is an environmentally sensitive area that needs to be preserved and maintained if the economy is to benefit from the area. Thank you for watching my video, and I hope you've learned a little bit about the Chesapeake Bay. I will have all of the links to any of these pictures that you see in the video down below, and they will be in order from the very first picture you see to the last picture you see.